manage what you need to manage. QA prevents problems rather than just detecting them. This is in this organization, they were involved in requirements reviews and design reviews, and they had metrics on, this is the kinds of problems that we can find during these reviews. QA helps me pass the CIO test because if something bad were to happen in production, I could honestly say I'd done everything I could. This is back to the level of confidence, right? And this is from a development manager. The development manager felt confident because of the test team. The QA team provides useful, timely, credible information that helps guide the project. So, this is the kind of thing, survey the people who are important consumers of your reports and make sure that this is true, because certainly if people do not believe that you're providing useful, timely, and credible information, that's a major failure as a test organization, because one of the main things we do is provide information. I mean, we are there assessing quality, right? And if people don't feel that our assessments of quality are useful, timely, and credible, then why are we doing what we're doing, and shouldn't we be doing it differently? And that information should help guide the project. So telling somebody a fact which is true and which is credible, but which has absolutely no bearing on how to move forward successfully on the project is not extremely helpful. Bad news from QA is handled effectively, and they have good knowledge of the big picture. So, are we able, when we present bad news, to come forward with options for how to deal with that? Do we work effectively with other people in the organization when we identify problems to say, hey, let's work together, try to figure out how we move forward? Because the project probably will move forward. I mean, the big question is, will you be on board? Or maybe you'll be on board, but will you have any influence? If you want to have influence on how projects move forward into success, then certainly exploiting is maybe the wrong word, but making sure that you are ready to be a part of solving problems when problems arise is part of being perceived as a strong contributor on a project, and how to win recognition as a valued member of the team. Now, all of these things, these are not going to happen by accident. But that said, I think it is possible for most test organizations. I do not think that that any of this praise here was context-driven, if you will. In other words, it was something that could only happen in this organization, or was really unique to this organization, would happen to be a bank. I mean, I think that this kind of thing, where you determine what matters to people and you connect effectively to it, and you then sell the fact that you've done that to them, you demonstrate that connection, you demonstrate the value, really, is something that we all can do, and it's something we should all aspire to, because it's a difference between having a test team that's, a great place to work, where people feel valued and they're making a strong contribution, versus maybe a place where people work and say, well, I know what I'm doing here, but nobody else seems to. Okay. Now, this is another finding which is sometimes surprising for some of our clients. It is no longer surprising for me. It hasn't been surprising for me for a little over 10 years now, I would guess. Probably more like 15 now that I think about it. The clarity of my thinking on this continued to evolve until about 10 or so years ago, and shortly after I wrote Critical Testing Processes, I think it's sort of gotten this completely through my head that testing is not a cost center. Now, I like this quote from Derek Bach, here, former president of Harvard, of if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And I think if you rephrase that to say, if you think testing is expensive, try shipping crappy products all the time. That's basically the inverse of that from a testing point of view. If testing is seen as expensive, well, then just forego it for a while and ship untested software, see what happens. Now, here's the thing. How many of you out there listening know exactly how much money testing saved your company last year? We'll come back to this one in the question and answer session, and those of you who who can provide a figure and tell me how you came about it, I'll be impressed by that and give you an attaboy, maybe ask you a few questions about how that worked as we go through the Q&A session. But this really is, I believe, a question that we ought to be able to answer, and we ought to be able to answer it with numbers. And waving our hands around and going, "Oh, we saved the company a lot of money, and quality is free," and all these platitudes that everybody knows and everybody's heard, but that do not drive behaviors. We need to get away from that, and we need to think about, okay, how do we determine the answer to this? And about 1/3 of our assessment clients both do not know and cannot get the data to determine the answer. In other words, they haven't even set up some of the data collection facilities, which honestly are pretty straightforward. I mean, if you've got a bug tracking system and you're able to reconcile bugs found in the field versus bugs found in test, you're halfway there. The only other thing you need to be able to do is do some rough cost calculations. But we see clients that literally can't answer this question because they can't collect the data. I think that's bad. It's going to be difficult for you to connect to business value and to be seen as a value contributor. One of the key things that we do as testers, which is find bugs that need to be fixed before we ship, and thereby provide the company with an opportunity to save, in many cases, a lot of money, huge amounts of money. If we can't measure that, then we basically kind of obscured one of our main marketing points. And really, you want to avoid doing that because you do need to market testing. Excuse me. Now, so what is the return on the testing investment? So for some of our clients where we could calculate their team's return on investment is part of the assessment process. So in the industrial control system I was talking about before, 1,475%. So, 15 times. In other words, the company was saving 15 times what it was spending on testing based on the defects that were being found by the test team. And that's just based on the defects being found. There are other things that we could try to quantify. Banking application. This is the successful banking testing team I was talking about before. 3,500%. In other words, for every dollar spent, they save $35 on that. Now, that you'd say, well, yeah, that would make sense in banking because, it's high risk. And that's absolutely true. When you start talking about things that are high risk, the cost of external failure is extremely high. That does indeed magnify the return on the testing investment. But so what? I mean, that's just an argument that the more expensive it is to have bugs in the field, the more we should spend on testing before, which I think is completely intuitive and should be intuitive to just about anybody that you mention that to. But it is good to be able to measure it. Now, consumer electronics product, we measured that's 333%. So basically, every dollar spent saves $3. And that's kind of at the low end, but still, you notice, I mean, that's a spectacular return on investment. Spectacular. Nobody's getting anything like that in the stock market, I mean, even the Madoff investors who, you hear people arguing on TV, well, they should have known that it was too good to be true. I mean, even the Madoff investors would have said, no, that just can't be. But, this is by well-established techniques, cost of quality analysis that say, yep, this is what happens. It's very expensive to have bugs in the field. Internet appliance project that we worked on, 866%. So this is not at all unusual. A guy named David Rico did a study for the U.S. Department of Defense where he found that the average return on the testing investment was about 800%. So it's not just me. Now, if you're wondering, hey, how exactly do these calculations work, and maybe I've got the data I could do this, if you go out to the basic library page of the website, rbcs-us.com, and take a look at the article in the basic library. It's completely free, like everything on the basic library. And you download that article, Testing ROI, what IT managers should know. It'll walk you through a case study of exactly how to quantify this. Not terribly difficult. Okay, now, let's go back.